Recording. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is the Gestalt Get-Together, a speech therapy PD podcast about Gestalt processing, the autistic neurotype, musical language, and more for speech language pathologists, parents, and really any related professional who wants to learn more about GLP and what's working in the clinical setting. If you're here for the live recording, please make sure you get your credit by heading over to SpeechTherapyPD to complete the quiz by the end of the day. If you need CEUs and you're listening later, you should use my code Gestalt33 to get this episode credit for free. My guest tonight is a speech language pathologist and the founder of Rooted and Rising Therapies and NeuroNook. Through Rooted and Rising Therapies, she specializes in working with autistic children and GLPs with focus on executive functioning, AAC, and unmasking. Now, NeuroNook, it aims to break down silos between disciplines and equip clinicians for regulation-first care. Through mentorship, speaking engagements, and digital resources, Rachel encourages therapists to build collaborative teams, challenge outdated models, and create therapy spaces where children feel seen, respected, and truly understood. Financial disclosures for Rachel is that she's the owner of Rooted and Rising Therapies and NeuroNook. And my own financial disclosures, I'm the owner of Crescendo Communication, my private practice. I do receive compensation per episode from Speech Therapy PD. And then I do paid trainings around GLP and using music in my speech language pathology practice. All right, with all that, I want to say welcome to the podcast, Rachel.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I like to start off every episode by hearing about how you got to this point in your career today. You know, your relationship with the lens of GLP. Really take us through what brought you to right now.
Yes. So I first started out as a speech therapist, really interested in working with kids. I was exposed to speech therapy because the girl that I nannied in high school, she was born 6 weeks early. I would take her to her intensive speech therapy in the summer. And so I knew at a very young age I wanted to be a speech therapist. But then in grad school, I really liked working with the adults. And so for my CF, I worked in a hospital. I was a certified brain injury specialist. That was like my first dose of executive functioning was actually working with adults. And then COVID happened and the hospitals were full of people that were not thriving. And so I said, take me back to peds where the happy children are. And so I started working at a private practice in Texas. And in that same year, my nephew was diagnosed as autistic. And I would come home on the weekends and play with him and hang out. And he was one of those classic, like, echolalic kids. And at the time, like, I knew about echolalia, but was not informed about Gestalt language processing. I didn't really understand why the things that he could say with me when we were playing, they were still working on. And his, like, speech therapy, she had him like strapped in a high chair with ready, set, go. When him and I were in the hot tub last week throwing a plastic cup back and forth saying ready, set, go. And so really diving into that and trying to find out like why a speech therapist was working on things and skills that he already naturally had is what probed me into Gestalt language processing. I ended up moving back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area and opening my private practice exclusively to do child-led play-based therapy for these kids that use echolalia to communicate.
And here we are.
Here we are.
And then I'm also curious about NeuroNook. What inspired you to start that?
Yes, so it's still very much intertwined into my nephew. He was one of those kids that was kicked out of multiple daycares. They tried the public school option for that Head Start program. He was not having a good experience there. And so my sister was like, I think our only option is ABA. And I had had bad experience as a private practice speech therapist going into ABA centers. And so I was like, if we're going to do this, we need to do this very collaboratively and very hands-on. And so I first created NeuroNook to create a framework to help speech therapists start to launch and provide neuroaffirming speech therapy in ABA centers. So that started that, and then just a continued growth of I don't realize how much of a silo I am until I start talking to other speech therapists, or we get families from other speech therapists, and realizing so many people are not doing child-led play-based therapy or supporting Gestalt language processing. And so just a passion to help meet the needs of all these kids that are out there not getting their communication needs met. And so providing that continuing education and resources for other therapists and parents so that their kids can just thrive.
It's really cool. I do, when I'm keeping up in a lot of like the message boards and places where people are asking questions about how to work with GLPs, it is a common question that comes up of how do I collaborate in ABA centers? How do we find common ground and then bring in ideas that we know are working for kids who communicate through echolalia? So that's great that you've created something to promote that. It's a more formal and can kind of have a big ripple effect. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking tonight, of course, some executive functioning, but also for participants who are leaving, who are attending right now. We hope that you leave with an understanding about parallel play and how that connects to kids who present with characteristics of stage 1. We're going to be talking about the importance of cognitive flexibility and how this applies to play with GLPs who are looking like stage 2. And then also talking about narrative play, which is my favorite personally, and how it relates to GLPs who are looking like stage 4. Let's go in order. Let's talk about parallel play. What does that mean to you and look like to you?
Parallel play to me is the child playing with whatever they're interested in however they want to play, whatever their play schema is. Usually GLPs in stage 1, from my experience, they are recreating something, either recreating the play scheme that their parents introduced them to with this toy, or a way that they saw it played with on YouTube or in a different show, recreating that scene. And so in that stage 1, these GLPs are big picture thinkers. They think with a big episode or a big picture in their brain, and it can be super dysregulating for us to come in and interrupt that picture. And so when I'm working with GLPs in stage 1, I want to build felt safety and connection and really have a good foundation of regulation. And so when I'm playing with them, I'm playing next to them. It may be something completely unrelated. So if they're playing with the peekaboo barns in the way that Miss Rachel does it on the video, maybe I have like a gear spinner or a ball tower, just something different in the room that might have something that might pique their interest, but I'm not interrupting their play scheme at all. I'm just kind of in their proximity, kind of showing them what other play schemes are available without forcing them to interact with different toys in different ways.
So not threatening their play scheme, allowing them to complete, I consider like the full arc of the play gestalt. It's really important not to like get into the middle of that or threaten that in any way. But I really like the idea of being separate and engaging with something else. Do you ever do any work with mirroring the child in the play that they're doing? Not with the same exact toys, but kind of like separate but similar toys?
Yes, especially if kids like to line things up. I'll line up my own things. I'll have like my own line. Sometimes I'll do it the same way that they're lining it up, but then sometimes they look at me and they're like, that's supposed to be my line. So now those are mine, and you need to line up something that is 100% yours, but you have that space to do that.
Yeah.
But I need all of these things because now this is my extended line. So it really depends on the child and like what they're interested in. I feel like so much of today's talk is so child dependent and so their sensory profile dependent. So it's kind of like getting to know that child, but definitely we want to have that felt safety and connection. And so I'm never intruding or stopping or changing their play picture. I want that to be what they show up as and like their authentic self and their interest. And so, yes, but also sometimes no.
Yeah, right. I love kids who line things up. There's so much you can do with a line. There's so much you can stretch there in the play. It's really exciting. And to see how it shifts over time. So many of my line kids, the lines never go away, but there's a richness that develops, and we see so many other types of play expand around it. What are signs in a stage 1 kid at that parallel play stage? What are signs of progress or expanded play for them?
For me, what I'm looking at is when they are doing their picture play, like maybe are they doing joint attention with me? Are they starting to have that alternating attention, that executive functioning skill? Can they come in and initiate it? Or is that play already set up for them? If something is out of reach, can they initiate that communication for that play? If something's missing, a lot of these kids, since because they are big picture thinkers, they have it cataloged in their brain, every single thing that needs to be. And so if that peekaboo barn, that number 5 is missing that rooftop,
Yeah.
they might go around and look for the whole office. So are they developing that problem solving, or are they getting there and that roof is gone and they're having a complete meltdown
Yeah.
because that picture is incomplete? To me, when they start being able to look outside, that shows a little bit of that flexibility and little, okay, maybe we're expanding our play skills, or maybe we're pushing kind of to that stage 2 play.
Mm-hmm. I know for me, it's something I have to be very careful about, that if I'm bringing a set of items, I need to check that they are all there. Because I've had some really hard sessions where like the letter Y is missing and they're not at that level to be able to tolerate that, or even like find it funny. Now I've got a couple of clients where like they think it's hilarious if the color purple is missing from the rainbow. But that's something I definitely, urge therapists and parents, where if you're bringing in or modeling with some sort of set of items, just check and make sure that you've got every single one first.
Yes, absolutely. One kid that was super into Legos and like recreating the Legos exactly how the replica or like the picture is in the book.
Yeah.
And he got to the point, it was like the Batman station or whatever, and it needed all the ones with the gears on it, and that was missing.
Oof.
So in the minute, I like ran and grabbed a Sharpie and drew it on there, and he thankfully accepted it.
The drawing.
Yes, the drawn one. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is huge for you. Huge, because a month ago this would not have been accepted.
That is one of my go-to strategies if something is missing, or if I want to build that play flexibility, is to draw it down. And sometimes I'll like have scissors available too to cut it out so that the shape itself has higher fidelity. Do you have, well, that was a great example with the kid where something is missing. Do you have any other examples of what success can look like in this stage 1 joining?
Yes, I'll go like back to the Peekaboo Barns. I feel like so many of our GLPs just love Miss Rachel and want to create Miss Rachel.
Yeah.
So I allow access to YouTube videos in my sessions. And I think it's always a win when the kid wants me to be a part of it. So maybe he's holding up the duck for me to make the duck sound instead of just him and Miss Rachel doing it. And so when they're including us and bringing us in, I think that's really huge. I think also in stage 1, like, are they expanding to where can they do this play scheme with me in our office, as well as like, are they doing this at home? Are they doing this at daycare? Because sometimes these are so context, like episodic based kids. And so like sometimes they'll come and they just play with these 5 things at speech, and then I hear that they're at OT and they're playing with different things with OT, but versus saying like, okay, can we build up this schema to be more generalized?
Yeah, I typically think about like, what is their Gestalt conception of me as a person? What is related to me that a subtle shift in my behavior or what I'm bringing in is going against that? So I think about like a first session with a kid can be very important because it's creating the template for who you are. And it's funny, I was just thinking today, I don't have anything like smart to say about this, but I was thinking like, does me wearing a different outfit every week impact that too? I was just thinking about like, maybe like scrubs would be a way to keep that visual consistency. But I haven't thought any deeper about that, but it just hit me about that sameness every week. Could that even extend to what we're wearing in sessions?
Yes.
I've also had families who feel like disappointed or confused that delayed echolalia or a gestalt that was acquired in the session, they're not using with other people. And again, it's that utterance may be within the gestalt of the therapist for now, and then can break out in the future.
Yes, I talk a lot about, I don't use the word like episodic as much with parents. I just say like their idea or picture of therapy is this. And so in that stage 1, I talk about them having a lot of different pictures. And then in stage 2 is kind of when they're putting those like those pictures together to make an episode.
Yeah.
And so I say like, this is their picture of here. And as they expand and grow, they'll start to like mix and match their pictures. And so you'll start to see things that they do here outside. But I also have a lot of our parents in our sessions. And so sometimes they can more closely recreate their pictures at home or at the park. Or they just have that confidence that like, okay, my kid is making progress versus those parents who just like sit in the lobby and you're just giving them that report at the end of the session.
Yeah, it's really fun to integrate families whenever possible. I've had moments where maybe a caregiver models an utterance that I did a week beforehand, or I'm doing something a parent will usually do, and the kid will like look back and forth between us, like, hold on, you just did something I didn't expect. We're blending these two worlds together. I wanted to pause and talk about play. And what does play mean? A lot of different people talk about play in different ways. And when I think about what maybe the majority of people refer to as play, it's pretending and replicating adult behaviors. So cooking, just kind of act like raising, like playing with a baby doll, a lot of that adult behavior replication. But play, and I wanted to share a quote. It's by Dr. Pamela Wolfberg. Play is an activity that is pleasurable, intrinsically motivated, non-literal, voluntary, and involves active engagement. And so play is pleasurable. It brings joy to the child. Play is intrinsically motivated, which is that the child engages in play because it's enjoyable, not for external rewards. 3, play is non-literal. So play can be abstract, where the experience matters more than the outcome. I love that line. Experience over outcome. Number 4, it's voluntary. They play because they want to, not because they're told to. And then that last one, active engagement. The child is fully involved, giving their attention to the activity. And I just wanted to share that because in moments where we feel like maybe they're not playing in ways that we'd expect, it might be hard for us to know what play means to this child. Going back to those 5 ideas of, is this authentic play for the child?
I love that you said that, because to me, play is like an expression of that child's authentic self and their interest.
Yeah.
And so what a joy that is that a child feels safe, that they can truly, genuinely play around you and include you in their play, because that is something so special and sacred to each individual child.
And the inclusion in that play it looks very different kid to kid. And it can also be very subtle. So it can be, as subtle as just looking over at you to maybe imitate a single sound. It can be placing your hand on an object. It can be these little moments that, again, like don't look like play, but it's this welcoming in. Are you being drawn in and trusted to be a part of this? Because they believe now that you're not going to threaten it. You're going to add value and enhance it. All right, ready to pivot to stage 2 play? Yes. Okay. I said that narrative play is my favorite. They're all my favorite. Okay, I love doing stage 2 play. I call it like play stretches in my work, but that goes to cognitive flexibility. So tell us what cognitive flexibility means to you.
Cognitive flexibility is when you start to have the idea and understanding that not everything is black and white and it needs to be done the exact same way every single time, that there can be some flexibility or some changes to it. We see this a lot in GLP language. I know that language development is mirrored with play development, and that was play skills. And so usually when I start to see that cognitive flexibility in play or flexible play is usually a sign that like stage 2 language is coming, or vice versa. And so it's really fun to help parents like see those moments and start to like nurture that flexibility too at home in a safe and regulating way.
I want to give a lot of examples for this, because what I hear from therapists and parents is that, stage 1, once they understand what's working, they're like, okay, I can do parallel, I can do mirroring, I'm noticing these signs. But stage 2 is where a lot of people, anecdotally, just from what I'm talking to people about, is where it can feel more challenging for them to think of ideas, little ways to stretch. So I think this could be something, if we share examples of what we see working. I want to hear about, I know it's different kid to kid, but in general, what are some small ways that you shift or show new combinations in stage 2 play?
For those kids that really like cars and like racetracks, sometimes I will put balls down the tracks instead of cars. So it's still
Mhm.
giving that visual stem or that visual enjoyment of something whooshing down the slide or the track. I also have a treadmill in my office, so sometimes we'll create that flexibility. Instead of putting the cars down the track, we'll turn on the treadmill and the car will run down the treadmill. And
Yeah.
so you still want to give them what they're looking for in that enjoyment of play, but you're just showing them that it can be done in different ways. A way that I do this that I feel is really affirming is that like I ask them, can I show you something different instead of like taking what they have and making it flexible? Or I'm also introducing a flexible thing in parallel play. So maybe they come in and they're excited and they're racing the car down the track, and maybe they're open to doing 10 different cars versus their one favorite car.
Mhm.
um, so I might introduce, like, instead of a track that shoots down, maybe I have one that we build on the floor, and we can build it differently every single week or on weeks that they're more regulated. um, for those kids that like magnetiles, sometimes they're like organizing them by the rainbow color.
Mhm.
So we have them all the way across the floor in the rainbow color. But maybe this week, I'm building like rainbow towers instead of like the rainbow roads.
Yeah.
You're just changing it just a little bit to expand their brain and create that flexibility, but not take away any of the joy or any of that play schema that's surrounding that kid's desires.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is it's something I often talk about is container content. So you're keeping the container, that scheme the same of thing, like, so the ball's down the ramp. It's still thing goes down thing,
Mm-hmm.
but you're shifting out the contents a little bit. And so the container stays the same. That's going to feel safe and predictable. But then there's a little bit of novelty through replacement, and that can feel safe. And I say can, it might not, but it's kind of, I find this dance of let me try one little shift, one little substitution, and see what feels safe or like truly mind blowing and exciting.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the idea of shifting, like rainbow order. Don't get me started. I love
I do.
anything in rainbow order.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I just, those kids who like rainbow order, for me, it's really exciting because I've got a million things to do with rainbow order. So I'm like, okay, perfect. I know what to do. Um, I love the idea of doing that with lots of different objects. Something else I've recently found very helpful for a couple kids who are like my rainbow order kids is doing what I call set mixing. And
Mm-hmm.
so let's say they've got rainbow order of their animals. Then what I'll do is I'll get rainbow order of magnetiles, put the animals on top of it. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing a set mixing. There's different sets of items, but again, the container is the same, red through purple. I have got plenty of kids where like they extend it out to black and brown and even like silver and gold, even better, elevated. But then I'll think about how many sets can I mix together
Mm-hmm.
to add into, and I had last Thursday, we had 4 different sets together in these little groupings. It was beautiful to behold.
Yes, I've definitely done that. We also offer OT at our practice, and so we have various
Cool.
like sensory things. And so we have a ball pit and like the rainbow stepping stones, which if you turn those over are an amazing container. And this kid really likes these like put together rainbow unicorns. And so he would
Mhm.
get a ball that matched the unicorn and put it in the rainbow stepping stone. And like that was our play scheme for the day. And it was so fun. It was so fun.
Yeah.
But just kind of expanding them beyond that.
Yeah. And so thinking about kind of the lens of it, because we can come up with a million examples, but what is that lens is what is the structure that they're working with and
Mm-hmm.
how can we slightly shift it? So rainbow order is one. Lot of kids I've worked with, animals are a special interest.
Mm-hmm.
So like especially categorical animals, so like farm or zoo, birds, water. I don't know if marine life is one that you've seen often, but a lot of kids I work with love marine life. What could be some ways to expand on animal play or arranging animals?
Sometimes it's just for me, like I will kind of tether back and forth of like, okay, am I going to change the play or am I going to change the language in the play? Like, what am I
Yeah.
mitigating in this session? And so sometimes if they're the kids that come in and like they have a certain song, like they're going to play with like the whale, they have the baby beluga song. So maybe I'm just mitigating that, or I'm saying that same thing in a different way. Sometimes like maybe instead of putting the marine life into water, maybe we do like the blue kinetic sand. So
Yeah.
we're still incorporating that, but changing that. Some kids though, like you'll be able to see when they're not ready for that mitigation, and they'll repeat their gestalt back to you and they're like, no, like this is not how we do it. Or they'll be independent and they'll go get the tub and fill it up with water. And so I think remembering to honor those and not try to push too hard, but just trying to think like just small steps. And if that small step seemed too big of step for that kid, and just regulating like, okay, what's an even more micro step? Can I do this in parallel play? Can I have you bring your tiger and I have my own tiger? And maybe I show you, let's put the tiger, like let's build a zoo today with magnetiles, or let's build a zoo with Lincoln logs, or maybe the swing is the zoo and they're all on there. So kind of whatever is within the kid's interest, just like one step shifted.
I like what you said about sometimes it's the play and sometimes it's the language, and maybe teasing out what would their nervous system be able to tolerate today, rather than just sticking to the play or just sticking to the language. It might be a day to have some more discernment about which direction would I go. And I know I have plenty of kids where like I can't predict if it's a language, like if it's getting more flexible with language or with play. So going in with an open mind with it too. Okay, so animals. And actually, I want to open this up because we have a lot of people in attendance tonight. I'm so grateful you're all here. I'd love to hear in the chat, with GLPs you've worked with, any successes with substitutions, stretches when it comes to that play. And also, beyond the examples, how did you know that it was successful? Did you see something on their face? Was it something that they said? I want to hear some reflections from all of you. We always get such good examples from the audience in these episodes. So let's move into talking about this stage 4 narrative play, because I think that there's a lot of richness here. Language has shifted considerably, and there's a lot of different directions we can go in this stage 4 work. But first, let's talk about what are signs in your work that a child is emerging into stage 4.
For me, I look a lot at play. Are they coming in and are they still doing those like loop scenes? Are they still recreating things? Are they mix and matching things? Or are they starting to create new ideas? Are they coming into the room and like pulling things and creating a whole new play schema? Are they starting to do like true pretend play? I think sometimes if you are not familiar with the shows that kids are watching and they're recreating that, you can be like, oh, that's pretend play. But like really that's something from a show. So really getting to know the child and what they're into to see like, is this true pretend play? Is their grammar clunky? Like, are they saying some wonky things to you? I feel like a lot of kids in stage 4 are starting to give you directions in play. Like they realize that like they can be in charge of the therapy session and they can direct you. I feel like they start to question things, and I just really love stage 4. We have so many kids in that stage right now. And so they just crack me up. But truly it's just like their own ideas. Like nothing is really like piecemealed from other things, nothing's recreated. They still have their interest, but like their play is new and different kind of every single time they're coming in.
I love that you mentioned the clunky grammar. That is such an exciting sign to me of what's shifting. I get a little too excited sometimes when it happens, when we hear like those errors, and I will whip my head around to the parent and go, has anyone ever said that sentence to them before? And they're like, probably not, because it's clunky. And that's such a cool moment to be like, there was choice. There was so much choice in there about how these words go together. It still might be like slightly formulaic, right? It might be kind of that mix of 2 and 4, but I love a misconjugated verb. I love a wonky word order. It is such a thrill to hear those.
I will take this moment to plug in your stage 5 grammar tracker.
Oh,
My
wow. Thanks.
practice uses that exclusively, and it is so helpful for us to track like their higher level grammar stages. I always shout that out.
Oh my gosh.
I do
Thank you.
presentations because it's so easy. I feel like it's so much easier than doing developmental sentence scoring for those higher level stages. So all SLPs should get Corinne's grammar tracker.
Thank you. I cannot promote my products on here. I can simply say thank you for that. I appreciate it. I worked really hard on it and I'm so glad it's being used. That's great.
It's so helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, so let's talk about narratives a little bit more. What
Mhm.
does a narrative mean to you?
It's for me, it's when those kids start to put together their novel ideas to tell me about something. So they either tell me about a past experience, something in their day, or something that they want to do. This is, I feel like, really unique to stage 4 is those novel ideas and them telling us something for the first time. Um, it's usually pretty clunky and wonky grammar, but it's so cool to start to help them to develop this. I feel like so many parents come in for GLPs and they're like, I want them to have conversational speech, and you're like, we're at stage 1, we got a long way to go. Or just like educating on like how back and forth communication looks different in those early stages, but like that true conversational speech, I say it's usually coming like stage 4, stage 5. So this is like that emergence of that is in stage 4. And they're able to start to tell their parents like what happened at school and about their day, and that's such a milestone for parents. So that's where I feel like this is where kids can really start to shine.
So there's different types of narratives. We can see emergent, emerging narrative play. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about there can be personal narratives. So sharing about maybe the day at school, playing it out,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes what I refer to as playing through something. So maybe there's a hard event, or maybe something hard is coming up. The idea of playing through it, can we reenact this with items, objects, drawing it out? I love to draw out a story so that they can make like kind of relive it again and make sense of it with a little bit of distance. So personal narratives for sure, but also seeing pretend and make believe.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about any kids or moments when you've leaned into the make believe worlds.
It's really fun when they can express their idea and they're like, no, you're a rocket. And yes, and so you're like, okay, now I have to embody a rocket, and we're just like running through our office. Um, and being able to like model language in those moments, but like I am a rocket, so like what all can I say? And so it's really unique when I can be like, if I was an astronaut inside of a rocket, I might, and then helping them kind of guide and narrate the play that way. um I feel like a lot of kids that have that pretend play um are trying to be really good at like telling you what their idea is, but they also really expect you to kind of already read their brain. And so, like, helping them with that executive functioning support of like, if you want me to do that, then I have to know what you're thinking, or like tell me the next step. Um, because even just like sometimes with storytelling, kids just assume that like you know the background or you know exactly what you're talking about, you know that thing about their special interest. And so explicitly telling them like, hey, I don't know what to do, I don't know what's next, help me get there, is super important, because I feel like even as myself as a neurodivergent person, like sometimes I just think in my very black and white brain, and someone will be like, did you think about that? And I was like, no, I never would have thought about that in a million years. And so helping them to see that like you're not just in your head and nobody else is in your head, and to help them expand that way, because that's so important when they're playing on the playground with a kid doing pretend play, to be like, this kid's not playing right with me, so now I'm going to be mad, versus like, oh man, if I want them to be a rocket and I want them to shoot down the slide, I have to tell them that. I can't just say you're a rocket and expect them to go down the slide.
I'm imagining you as a rocket running around the clinic right now. I also think about even if they're not explicitly asking you to take on that role, you could naturally start to take on that role and model it and see if they hook into it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if there's a story that might involve a tree, if you make your body grow and turn to that tree, see if they respond to it and kind of run with it, embodying different characters. Do you ever use props and costumes?
We have costumes in the office. I will say very few of our kids are ever interested in them.
Interesting. Okay.
We did have one child reenact Moana, but then she broke her leg because she broke her leg at home. Like she
Oh,
started
oh my
in
gosh.
her office, went home and tried to recreate it and jumped off something and broke her leg.
Oh my
So
God.
I will say we are probably a little bit more on the conservative side of letting kids do those things, just because that was a wild situation.
That's awful. Oh my gosh. Um, I'm totally derailed by that. Oh my
Sorry.
gosh. No, it's okay. It's okay. Um, yeah, interesting about the costumes. I guess I, yeah, same for me. Costumes have never really been a hit, more so the props.
Mhm.
Um, Something I love, and this is good for my cognitive flexibility, is that you said Moana, it reminded me of a client where I'm not going to have the perfect props for
Mhm.
Bluey, for Daniel Tiger, for How to Train Your Dragon. I'm not going to have those. So it's really fun to like look around the room or look around someone's home. I do in home therapy and thinking, what could be that? What could I use as that? And because I'm showing how to interpret items differently, I'm then modeling that for the kids as well, is that things can be other things. I think about one of the kids was singing a Moana song, and it wasn't clear it was the contour of it. But I grabbed, we had like, the Pickler climbers.
Mhm.
So there's the connecting piece that can be the slide. And I was like, oh, that's going to be Moana's boat. Put it down on the ground. I stood on it, on the boat, and you could see, I could like, when you just see the gears turning.
Mhm.
I just saw it be like, da 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 da. And he slowly got on top of it and looked at me. He got right off after, but it was that moment of, let me try it.
Mhm.
And then I got a box and made that into Mona's boat. And that felt a lot better to him. I think it had higher fidelity to a boat itself.
Mhm.
But yeah, looking around, that's another thing to think about, is beyond a specific example, take a moment, look around the space that you're in. What could be something else? Because then you're modeling that for them. With this narrative play, I'm thinking beyond the objects themselves. Do you ever use things like writing, drawing, videos to help with this area of growth?
I do a lot of drawing and a lot of videos.
Okay.
A lot of drawing where the child is telling me what to draw, and sometimes I'll draw exactly what they're saying very literally to help them
Mhm.
like, oh wait, that's not what I meant. So helping with that communication breakdown and helping them create the language around what they're trying to express. They think it's hilarious, and sometimes they're like, I'll just do it myself and draw it themselves. But yes, drawing a lot for that. I use a lot of the like a very loose EET framework, the expanding expressive toolkit.
Oh, I
You're
don't know that.
like all the
No.
different colors. It's like blue is doing, green is group. So like helps you frame descriptive language about something. And so I do that in a very child-led play-based way to help build that language and that descriptive language versus just saying like this goes there. It's helping them kind of give that more descriptive language. And so a lot of times I'll do that when I'm drawing, like, okay, I'm drawing an apple. You can find it in the grocery store, just kind of like talking through it that way. Um, and then I also do videos because a lot of our kids love videos. And so I'll video something and we'll watch it back and we'll talk about, I'll kind of help them start to create that storytelling sequence when we talk about it. Or we'll go tell dad what we did in our session by narrating through the video.
I want to go back to the EET, the expanding expression tool. I just want to make sure I share a link with people who are here live. This is not an endorsement of this product by any means. I just wanted to share this. I've never heard of this. So in case people want to learn more about it, that's interesting. I think I recognize the beads,
Mm-hmm.
the
I
beads
don't
that you move.
ever use the beads and do it in the formal way that it is, but I use the framework of like when I'm talking about
Okay.
something, I might say what group it is, where I can find it, what its function is, to kind of
Interesting.
give those kids, those big picture, our GLP kids, kind of a framework of what they can talk about when they're describing something.
Yeah. I want to zoom into each of the ones that we mentioned, like writing, drawing, and the videos to give some more examples to people. So, which you want to start with, writing, drawing, or videos?
Let's do drawing.
Okay. So, with drawing, are you a whiteboard person?
I am, it depends on the kid because some
Okay.
kids have like an easel on one side's a whiteboard and one side's a chalkboard, and they love like the barrier task, like you have to guess, no peeking.
Yeah.
And then I have some kids who they want to do it at our craft table where we're both drawing together side by side and they can see what I'm doing. So it depends
Okay.
on, but I do both.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about the with a whiteboard. I love a whiteboard. I always have one with me. It's super helpful, but there are some kids I work with where it's almost like reflexively they'll erase it right away. Even if it seems like they're having a good time, it's whatever I draw, right? Like it's getting erased right away. So that's something to think about with kids if you're doing writing and drawing, is if the whiteboard is something that they really want to erase it, maybe because like an empty whiteboard could even still be a gestalt in their head of like this is I want it to be clear. So that's where I'd pivot to paper. I guess paper is the only other option. Um, Ways to that I enjoy expanding the writing and drawing, of course, using different types of colors, but I also like to use stickers, what I call sticker stories,
Mm-hmm.
and using stickers to act things out or to create a scene. And you can use stickers of favorite characters for sure. But what I really like to do to expand the narrative play through stickers is I'll just hand them one sticker at a time. They put it on the paper and they have to construct a story
Mm-hmm.
based on the constraints of the stickers. So it might be a chameleon, but then there's a rocket ship. How can I create a simple narrative between these two items?
I love that. There's a dice game that has like different pictures on all the different
Yeah,
dice. That's how I use those as each, like a kid will have four and I'll have four and we'll shake it and we have to try to create some sort of story. But
oh,
it'll
I
be
like
like
that.
a light bulb, a world, same thing, like a beetle.
Yeah.
And so it's like the most off the wall things to try to connect.
Yeah, because so like if you've got all farm animals and you've got the setting of a barn, it might be easier to construct that story based on like past knowledge, and narratives that they've pulled from in the past, maybe from their stage one experiences. But if it's a bunch of unrelated objects, that is going to be more taxing on so many different parts of the brain.
Right.
But I think for me, it can lead to really, really hilarious moments too.
Mm-hmm.
Because how are we going to connect a motorcycle with a hedgehog? We've got to do a little bit of creative work there. I want to open it up now to people in the chat, and I do see some great participation. Thanks, guys. Um, Examples that any of you have used to work on narrative play with GLPs, but also maybe share ideas from other populations you worked with, so that we can see if maybe there's ideas that we can borrow there. I'd love to hear what you guys are all doing and using there. I would love to talk more about videos. It is a go-to for me because I feel like, I mean, screens are really compelling for so many different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons I love videos is because it is the exact same every single time. You're just replicating that over and over again. And I feel like that gives kids a chance to study it.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other benefits that you feel like videos have?
I feel like videos also really help with like that ideation. I feel like
Mm,
sometimes it's hard for kids to create their own ideas, especially if there's that executive functioning component. And so when you already have that situation videoed, like you said, they can study it and then they can build the language on that and they can record like, okay, now let's make it a little bit differently and let's record it again. And then we can talk about how they're different and like how you came up with that idea, how you self-advocated to change that or create that idea, to helping them develop that skill. I also really like ideas to, not ideas, I also really like videos to help introduce them to new things.
mhm.
They already have like a framework in their brain to reduce that anxiety or reduce that stress. And so if they're going to a new school, like I have the parents like go take a video of them like walking up to the school and talking about it. So they already have that picture. They already see where they're going versus showing up to school on day one and they're like, here we are. Even if they're in those stages fours, we have so many kids that we see that are in stage four when they're regulated or with their safe person that are stage four with us or stage four with mom, and then they get around peers and teachers and they're like back down to stage one and stage two with them because they don't feel the most regulated. They can't access that higher language. And so for them, really too, those videos are super powerful. So that they can watch, okay, if we're playing, doing pretend play, and I have my character say like, hi, what's your name? And they have their person say like, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. And they watch that again and again, and they repeat it, especially sometimes with those self-advocacy moments when we're working on that in play, that can help give them that courage and that confidence to be able to actually use that in person because they've rewatched it so many times. And that's become super regulating and kind of a gestalt for them that they can pull on when they're dysregulated and using those lower stages of language.
Yeah. I mean, you're speaking to ability versus access. Just because access isn't present right now doesn't mean that the ability has gone away. We have another Rachel in the chat who shared something cool. Rachel says, I've had lots of kids in a variety of stages working on narrative play with doctor kits. We use it to help with the routine of going to the doctor, talking about body parts, and sharing their state of being. It's lots of fun to create variety within that routine. I love that. Have you ever done anything around, I have an anecdote to share, but have you ever done anything around like doctor reenactments or play?
I've done more dentist things than doctor things.
Okay.
We do have several mouth models, even though we're not really an articulation office. We do have a lot of mouth models at our clinic, because kids just seem to love playing with mouths. I guess also because we do feeding. And so talking about that and tooth pain and we had one kid who like kept messing with his teeth, and so like we pulled up a YouTube video while we like had our mouth model. We're trying to have him like show us which tooth was hurting, but also just like brushing like markers off of a teeth or putting Play-Doh on teeth, just like creating that flexibility and that concept of like oral hygiene. It's super important for kids, and just lowering it and making it play within their interest.
Yeah. Especially I think about how aversive dentist appointments are for, I mean, a lot of kids, it's weird to have a stranger go in your mouth, but for neurodivergent kids who have that like maybe heightened sensory sensitivities, it's an important thing to play through. I have so many anecdotes. I'm trying to keep track of all of them. I had a mom who they had a really hard dentist experience. Like it was really tough, but she remembered in the session, I mean, in the appointment, even though it was very stressful, to take videos of the place from the kid's perspective so that they could watch them before, the next time to have that content of the actual place. And I thought that was brilliant that even though, it was a really tough experience, she was able to get that content to hopefully help soften it for the next time. Thought that was great. Another thing that might be helpful is when I think about kids going to new places, this is why I just like YouTube is so amazing for this, because if there's an idea you have, someone's probably made a video of it for better or worse. But I was thinking about one of my clients was going to get surgery, and I think she was 6 years old at the time, GLP, and going to a hospital. I mean, something that, not every kid has experienced, and she never experienced before. And trying to explain a hospital and surgery to a kid is pretty tough. And so I recommended, can you find a video, maybe like a tour of the hospital, or like someone else who's had an experience there who vlogged it. And that way they're able to create that template in their head. We do that for like aquariums, anywhere that a kid might be going. Can you find a video tour of that place so that they can maybe have that immersion or picture themselves there? We had a question from Judy, which is, are we referring to video modeling or watching videos already created? So I think we're speaking to both. Here's an interesting question. I want to hear your opinion. Do you see a benefit to doing one over the other? Do you feel like it's okay to use both?
I use both.
Mhm.
Again, it's very child dependent. I feel like video modeling is super powerful for kids in all stages, kind of like what we're talking about, showing them what to expect, videoing it from their perspective. For me, sometimes I'm doing a voiceover for that to give them the language based on what their stage is. Sometimes I'm putting a song over it to help them.
Mhm.
I really like the Coco Melon song, like about to do something new. It's like 30 seconds, but it like shows them that it's something new. Um, but also taking videos in real time and talking about those, also looking at other people's videos. For our big picture thinkers, videos are so powerful.
Yeah.
And I think so many people are hesitant to use them because they're like, oh, they're not interacting with me. But they can be so interactive and they can be so powerful.
Yeah, I use them almost every day with kids. I have one client where I swear every single step of language progress
Mm-hmm.
has come from a video that we've recorded.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost this method of translation. It
Mm-hmm.
translates new information through this medium that just works. And I mentioned how visually it's the same every time, but also acoustically, it's the same unless you're changing the volume. It
Mm-hmm.
is acoustically predictable. The human voice, when we're speaking just like this, if I were to say the same sentence 5 different times in a row, it would be different every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I was the best voice actor in the world, if I say, there's my water bottle over and over again, it might sound exactly the same. But if you looked at a spectrogram of my voice, it would be different. For autistic kids who have this overly detailed sensory mapping system in their brains, those differences might actually be relevant enough to be distracting from replication or iterating themselves. Video is not going to have that same level of difference. So it might be easier to engage with.
Yes, I've had shared kids with other OT private practices, and they're like, we've been working on cup drinking for 3 months. And this kid loves Miss Rachel. And I pulled up a Miss Rachel video of a kid taking a drink out of a cup, literally showed it to the kid, and he got it.
You
And the
got it.
OT was like, we've been working on this forever. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you didn't use what his favorite thing was. Like you didn't use a video that was showing him that literally we just replayed. And every time we replayed it and it got to the point where the kid took a drink, he took a drink. So
Mhm.
it's super powerful.
It'd be really powerful. Yeah, you're giving again, like, what can I use that is going to be a template, a
Mhm.
movement template, maybe? It's showing, it's something where they can use their mirroring skills that they've developed through this earlier stage play
Mhm.
to then build those skills later on. I forget who brought this up in the podcast. A previous guest said that they'll sometimes just prop their phone up with the camera flipped, and the
Mhm.
kid watching themselves in motion helps with trying new things. I mean, they love to see their action figures in motion. So that could be something else to try, is just prop your phone or your iPad up, flip
Mhm.
that camera and see what happens.
I've done that. And then I also have kids that just want to sit on the counter in the bathroom and do therapy in the mirror.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I recently had a client where the family got a full-length mirror
Mhm.
in the room. And honestly, I just feel like, yeah, I'm thinking more and more about mirrors because it's giving that real-time feedback. It's
Mhm.
that like biofeedback. I don't know if that qualifies as biofeedback, but like, yeah, having a mirror in the room, a full-length mirror is like a good, I'm not telling people what to buy again, but could be a good investment for the room. Because I know for this kid, he was watching himself in the mirror and loving it. I sat a couple feet behind him and started doing some he's stage one, started doing some wacky stuff behind him.
Mhm.
We had the most joint attention ever in the mirror.
I love that.
So
Oh,
that
that's
could be a place to play as well.
but it's less, well, it feels like less pressure because you're not
Yeah.
right next to him or on top of him, but he can just check
Mhm.
in with the mirror. That's amazing. That's such a good
Yeah.
idea.
And like, I know that, like eye contact is not requisite. Like eye contact is not requisite for joint attention, but the eye contact through that mirror was like a laser beam. It was really cool. Something else I like to do is, if we're doing some sort of mirror play, is getting an expo marker and writing on the mirror too.
Mhm.
Because that could be really great for hyperlexic kids. Writing a potential utterance, a formulaic, like some sort of formulaic utterance, writing it on there so that we're engaging in the mirror, but they're also seeing the drawing or the writing there. I've also done it on windows, but please ask permission before you do that. Like I had a client sitting up on his changing table looking outside, and he started naming things like squirrel. I blew me away when he said squirrel. It was like such a cool moment. So then I started drawing a squirrel on the window, like drawing what they're seeing and what they're talking about. Okay, so I do want to talk about with the use of videos. I know this is a big, big topic, but for kids who can get very looped on screens, where it can really even like dysregulate them, how do you navigate clients like that?
For those kids, I try to mitigate it into something else. And so if it's to the point where it's dysregulating, like I will try to recreate that video in person, like either I'm reenacting the scene or maybe I'm drawing it for them. Sometimes I'll just like take a screenshot and we'll talk about that screenshot versus like the full video. I've been able to help shift kids that way. Let me think.
Yeah.
I feel like that's mainly what I've done. Is either take a screenshot or like we become the video.
Screenshot's a great idea. I think also in a screenshot, if it's from some like source of media, making sure you have captions on, because then a screenshot, then you're going to have that written language there too, which is either like leaning into the hyperlexia or just helping make associations between text and spoken language. I'm also thinking of like books. Books could be a good place for that too. Well, let's talk about the use of books. I mean, narrative and books, there's a very easy connection there. Well, first I'll ask, in what ways are you using books in sessions with stage 4 kids?
I like to do the wordless books where we have to come up with our own narrative for those. And sometimes we're just like talking about what's on the page. Sometimes we're going to predict what's on the next page. I really like wordless books for those higher level stages or creating our own. There's like blank books that you can buy where you're drawing and writing your own story. That's how I target those higher stages.
Yeah, wordless books are fantastic. What was that one that everybody uses? Was it Good Dog Carl or something like that? I don't know. That's one that I hear about all the time. It's about a dog like taking care of a baby. But that's a really good one. Are there any others that you can remember the names of that you recommend?
All of mine are about frogs, but I cannot remember what they're called. They all have a frog. One is like a frog and a dog. One is a frog and an old man. They're like old. I found them at a garage sale.
Okay.
Don't remember what they're called.
I love that. Big frog. I'm a big frog fan. That makes me very happy. I did have, Judy in the chat says Good Dog Carl is great. Great. Okay. I'm not alone in this. I think for me, it's because that was what we used in grad school. So it's burned in my brain. It has a lot of motion in it too. I feel like books about animals, they tend to have a lot of motion, which is great. Just like maybe even working on higher level verb conjugations there. Okay. With the books, there was something else I wanted to ask about. Oh, I was thinking about, one of my clients where he loves books. He started asking his parents to write new dialogue onto the pages. Now, this is one you want to be careful about, because if you do this in a session, you want to be careful that they're not going and doing this at school or even like a bookstore. So it's like tread carefully. But this opened up his language so much because he realized he could get the characters to say anything. But it got him. He got there by having them write out these new like potential utterances on the page. This is where I love a speech bubble and a thought bubble. That's a great container for new language in a book. But have you ever had a kid who wants to like modify a book or have you write in it?
I have not had a kid want me to modify a book. I've had a kid draw something and want me to write what was happening in the picture.
Yeah. I like that. Like kind of like you're being a scribe for them.
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. I love all these ideas. So this went way too fast. It was so wonderful to hear all these great ideas from you. I'd love to hear in the chat if anyone heard an idea tonight that they're really excited about using, maybe even tomorrow. But what I'd like to ask, if you're thinking about these types of play and the kids at stage 1, 2, 4, are there any takeaways that you want the audience to bring away with them?
I think it's continuing to honor that kid's authentic self and their interest, and understand that like through play, we're helping them grow into who they are, and we're not having them mask. I think that's really important, is like, are we supporting skills, or are we expecting them to play the way that we want them to play? And I think the overarching thing of today in our alignment is like, we want their play and how we're incorporating their play to help them grow in their language and in their cognition.
And feeling safe
Yes.
and joyful while doing it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're seeing those responses of aversion, and I understand like we all really, and caregivers too, we all really want kids to be able to gain certain skills so their lives can be happier and easier. And I think about like those like types of functional play, those might emerge later once we've done this earlier work that feels safe and comfortable and hopefully really good for these kids. Being able to like rock a baby doll or pretend to cook in a kitchen, in my opinion, those are going to come later, and hopefully even in a more natural way once we build these foundations of play. We do have a couple of things in the chat I want to note of people who shared. One person, Judy, said, on the topic of adding text to books and creating new narratives and stories, comic strip conversations can be a wonderful tool to use. Yes, I think we talked about this in the last episode. So if people are interested, look up comic strip conversations. This is, and I love to do like a comic strip or like a storyboard, or I'll draw the actual boxes so that then it's giving a visual sequence of events too. And someone just shared, I do not work with kids now, but I like to use videos with no speech, videos with no language. And then what are the like stories called? Like, I mean, like silent movies. But that's something, if you guys are interested in using videos that don't have any language, if you YouTube has a lot of them. They're like short films without anyone speaking, and then you can narrate over them. I'm so glad you shared that idea right towards the end. Thank you. Well, this has been a really, really fun conversation. I appreciate it. You're leaving me inspired. I've got new ideas to take with me. And I appreciate you coming on, talking about play. It's such a fun topic.
You're so welcome. It's so fun. And it's so fun that we get to do this for our jobs.
Right? Isn't that so cool? But like I was in my last session before I came here, and it hit me like I'm sitting on the floor surrounded by rainbow items, and I get to be creative every day with these kids and see that spark on their face when I do the just right stretch. Like there's a lot to be grateful for in this work. I love GLP so much.
I do too. And I love that they feel safe with us too.
Yeah, it's really an honor, right? It's such an honor when you can establish that relationship with a kid and where you're like, okay, you feel really safe with me. And the ability to do repair too. Like I'm gonna do play stretches that do not feel good to you. And then we can engage in that repair together so we can get back to the safety. It's a cool process.
A script I love to give kids is like, that was not my idea.
Yes, yeah.
They can tell me that. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's try something different.
Yeah. I did not like that, Miss Corinne. No, thank you. That was not my idea. I love it. So cool. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. Once again, if you are joining live, please make sure you go get credit for this continuing education hour. You're going to go back to Speech Therapy PD. Make sure you finish up all the requirements there. If you are listening later on to the podcast on a streaming service and you would like to get credit for this hour, head on over to Speech Therapy PD. You can use my code Gestalt33 and get this hour for free. Get your hours early in the year so you're not scrambling in December like I always do. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. And I hope that you'll join me again in 2 weeks for the next episode of the Gestalt Get Together. Good night, everybody.